President Obama speaks about religious freedom, but what does he mean by that statement? Hi, I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Joining me is Matt Barber, vice president of Liberty Counsel Action. Matt, President Barack Obama recently spoke to a group of Muslims during the Islamic month of Ramadan, and he had the fourth annual iftar dinner at the White House. The fourth time that it's been there, all under President Barack Obama's leadership. And while he was in that meeting with the Muslims during Ramadan, he mentioned that of all rights we hold sacred, foremost is the freedom of religion. But the question is, what did he mean by that? And how does that square with the Obamacare, which literally is trampling upon free exercise of religion?
Yeah, it's just amazing to me. During that his speech, President Obama said, of all rights we hold sacred, foremost is freedom of religion. When I read that, my jaw dropped. Here is a president that more than any other in history has had the freedom of religion, of religious expression, placed firmly in the crosshairs, and he has pulled the trigger over and over again. I don't believe we have ever had a president that has been more hostile to the freedom of religion. We need only look to the Health and Human Services mandate requiring Christian and Catholic organizations, for instance, to provide abortifacients and sterilization and other services that Scripture finds certainly morally objectionable. So for this president to do this, it's reminiscent of Orwellian newspeak in the book 1984 by George Orwell, where they say things like up is down. That's what this president has done here with this comment.
He's always amazed me on these issues because he can say one thing and do something completely the opposite. And during this Ramadan dinner that he opened up the White House for, he said, of all the freedoms we cherish as Americans, of all the rights that we hold sacred, foremost among them is freedom of religion, the right to worship as we choose, close quote. That's President Obama. Now, it says that it beats in our heart, in the soul of the people who know that our liberty and our equality is endowed by our Creator, which is a nice quote. The problem is that it seems as though, in context, what he's talking about is the freedom of religion, which the First Amendment actually says free exercise of religion, which is a big, significant clarification. To just simply say freedom of religion, it says free exercise of religion. The freedom of religion that he's referring to, it seems to be just simply the right to worship as you choose. Now, obviously, that is completely involved in freedom of religion. You have a right to worship as you choose, but that's not the extent of freedom of religion or the free exercise of religion. The problem is when the government comes in, as in this mandate from HHS, from the Health and Human Services Secretary, and that mandate on religious institutions says religious institutions must provide contraception, must provide sterilization, and must provide coverage for abortion-inducing drugs, even though that violates your religion, even though you have to make a choice between following your religious dictates of conscience or violating them because that's what the government says you have to do. And those are two conflicting choices. These are not choices where you can continue on with your free exercise of religion and not be bothered by the government. It's the government telling you have to act in a certain way that is directly and specifically contrary to your religious viewpoint, conscience, and your beliefs. And that's what the Obamacare does. So to say that you're in favor of freedom of religion, it sounds like what he's talking about is just freedom to worship, not the free exercise of religion that the First Amendment speaks of.
Well, this president and Hillary Clinton, I know other secular leftists within the administration have used that exact terminology, freedom to worship. The First Amendment guarantees freedom to worship. And, you know, the secular left is very good at redefining the terms. They have now taken what the Constitution actually says in terms of the free exercise of religion, and they have narrowed it down to the sum total being freedom to worship, which is a minuscule aspect of the actual free exercise of religion, and that's by design. They know exactly what they're doing here, and you're right. His talk of freedom of religion, code for that freedom to worship idea that they have, which really is a restrict destructive phrase and idea, rather than one that embraces true freedom of religious expression.
Well, this administration, from every aspect, has been hostile to religious freedom in so many ways. There's a person, Kai Feldblum, on the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, who before was actually quoted as stating in her writings that if freedom of religion collided with homosexual rights, in other words, a right that's actually enumerated in the Constitution, freedom or free exercise of religion, with homosexual rights that's not enumerated in the Constitution or even in federal law, which one wins? She said homosexual rights win, religion loses. How contradictory is that when you've got an express constitutional amendment protecting free exercise of religion and not even a federal law protecting homosexuality, and freedom of religion loses, homosexual rights wins? And you also have this task force that under previous presidents was established that every year would come up with a report on religious persecution or religious freedom in countries around the world, and you would rank them. That report would be given to the president, and the president would have the ability to impose sanctions based upon their human rights violations based upon religion. President Obama has torpedoed that and decided that he doesn't want to pursue that anymore. So in every different way that you look at this particular administration, whether it's the appointments such as the Secretary of Health and Human Services with his HHS mandate, EEOC, this international report on religious persecution around the world, and in every other way, this administration has not respected freedom or free exercise of religion.
Not at all. And you mentioned Kai Feldblum, who was President Obama's recess appointment. She's so radical they couldn't get her through regularly through the Senate process. A recess appointment, former Georgetown law professor, radical lesbian activist who had actually supported polyamory and the idea of polygamous and communal marriages in the past. Actually, her exact quote was, "Gays win, Christians lose." She said that to a group of people standing around. Our friend Robert Knight, who's a Washington Times columnist and an author, overheard her say that exactly. Gays win, Christians lose. But it's not just the homosexual agenda. It's basically secularists win, Christians lose. Leftists win, Bible-believing Christians lose. That's the mentality of this Obama administration and the secular left.
And I would say that even with regards to religious freedom, the preeminent right is not religious freedom, but the right to life. The religious freedom or free exercise of religion is irrelevant to a corpse. It means nothing.
Yeah.
The right to life is the preeminent right. In fact, the Declaration of Independence says we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So life is the right of all rights. And then obviously free exercise of religion, to be able to worship God and to pursue the dictates of your conscience is a preeminent right that we've recognized as one of those unalienable rights in the Constitution. This administration, this government, whether it's local, state, or federal, must respect those fundamental liberties that we enjoy.
And pursuing the dictates of your conscience are, as opposed to what I think secular leftists would like to see and this Obama administration would like to see. They are not restricted to the confines of your church or your temple building. They are to be carried out everywhere, in public, in school, on the streets, in your place of business. That's what our Constitution intended, not this notion of freedom to worship where, well, you can be Christian all you want to so long as you only exercise your religion within the confines of your church. Well, that's off limits anymore. They're going after the churches as well.
It's time for pastors and churches and other people around the country to speak up. Liberty Counsel has a packet, an action pack called Silence is Not an Option. And clearly at this time of our history in the United States and around the world, silence is not an option. We need to stand up for our values and our views, whether it's in the ballot box or in our community. Give Liberty Counsel a call and ask for the Silence is Not an Option packet. You can also ask for this booklet, part of our Patriots Handbook on religious freedom. This one is on political action for pastors and churches. This talks about what pastors and churches can do. We also have a DVD as part of our Silence is Not an Option campaign. And it's a DVD showing what pastors and churches can do with regards to lobbying for or against legislation or campaigns, what you can and cannot do. Ask for the Silence is Not an Option packet. Make sure that your local leaders and pastors get that material. Go to lc.org.